So I do want to give a closer look as to what we saw. Our Fox 2 Detroit team was inside that courtroom and is bringing us the very latest. Let's listen in.
Okay, we've heard about a cry for help. Everyone said, oh, I was very concerned.
Attorney Ben Johnson, who is suing the shooter's parents, teachers, and counselors because government immunity prevents him from going after the district, paying close attention to the disturbing testimony, especially when it came to James and Jennifer Crumbley, who he says blew off their son's troubled behavior. He pointed to a meeting they had with school staff hours before the shooting rampage.
They all had control at that point. Not just the parents, not just them. They all had control, and they all blew it.
Testimony by a detective with Oakland County's computer crime unit revealing what he discovered on the phones of the Crumbleys. Ethan texting friends, showing off his new gun and others and how to use them. In August, making a haunting comment to a friend. But that's not all.
Ethan, this is now it's time to shoot up the school.
And the final text in this export?
JK, 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 JK. There was text messages back and forth between the other juvenile and him of kidnapping and killing another classmate. There's also videos of killing and mutilating baby birds.
Ethan, he says, also spent a lot of time on a website searching school shootings. But after the 15-year-old was caught by a teacher searching ammunition on his phone by text, his mom, Jennifer, appeared to joke about the consequences, or lack thereof.
Seriously, question mark, looking at bullets in school, question mark, question mark.
And what time and date was that sent?
That's on the 29th of November, 2021 at 11:53 a.m.
Okay. And what was the response?
He responded almost immediately after by saying, what?
Okay, was there a second and third response?
Yep, he responded saying, oh yeah, I already went to the office for that. Did you at least show them a pic of your new gun? LOL, I'm not mad. You have to learn not to get caught.
Several people Jennifer Crumbley spent time with, from her horse trainer to co-workers, testified she often confided in them about her issues with her son. Amanda Howland says they were at work when Jennifer was called to the school. When she returned, Jennifer showed her why. Perhaps the biggest red flag, Ethan's violent drawing of bleeding victims on his math homework.
That they were concerned with his drawing, that they were concerned that he may be feeling badly at school and that something could happen.
The school required immediate counseling, but that would never happen.
I said she should have brought him home.
And why did you say that?
I felt it was a disturbing photo, and I thought this child needed to be around family.
I'm Taryn Asher for The Edge.
Meanwhile, our very own Daytona Everett spoke with a legal expert following this preliminary hearing that we brought you live, raw, and unfiltered all day yesterday here on Live Now from Fox, really digging deeper into the witness testimony that we heard. So I want to play for you this segment here on Live Now from Fox.
So James and Jennifer Crumbley being taken out of the courtroom right there. Everything ending for the day. And unfortunately, we didn't get the beginning of that, but it sounds like more proceedings will happen February 24th at 8:30 a.m. I have Andrew Chakosky, our legal analyst, here on the line. So kind of we were talking about the evidence and the miscommunication between both sides here. So what is next for this case?
Discovery documents correct. So this has now been delayed to the 24th because the cell phone text messages that the defense attorneys have seem not to line up with what the prosecution attorneys have through their detective. Now that's very standard, and the software used in order to download all of these messages can be very complicated. So it could just be a user error type of problem here. And that's where attorneys offline, outside of the courtroom, tend to work together actually relatively collaboratively to make sure that everybody has the same thing. And so that's what's probably going to be the priority over the next couple of weeks, is to make sure that everybody has the same thing that they're talking about.
Right, and this is essential for both sides to be able to build their cases in this instance. So unfortunately, I think there was supposed to be another day tomorrow. Now everything being delayed and pushed back to February 24th. But still, we were diving into what was presented today, the evidence and the conversations had on the actual day of the shooting. And we were talking about that 911 call with James Crumbley.
Yeah, the 911 call was pretty hard to hear. We could hear that from the perspective of where kind of the microphone was in the courtroom, but we could hear James Crumbley making a phone call, and the 911 operator was initially trying to push him off the line, and he was insisting on making sure that a report of the involvement that he suspected was made known, and a phone number exchange, something along that line. So we can see that James Crumbley, at least initially, was trying to make contact with law enforcement. Again, as I was saying before the court had resumed just a minute ago, that can cut both ways. On one hand, it can show a consciousness of guilt, and on the other hand, it could show that he's actually trying to take mitigation efforts, trying to bring forward some information to law enforcement. Ultimately, I think that what is going to be very difficult here for the prosecution, although they're doing their very best to demonstrate it, is what the parents knew and when they knew about the degree of danger or risk that Ethan Crumbley presented to the public. And that's the big question here, and that's the charge. Very interesting charge that they were negligent in not doing more to bring forward the risks that were at hand.
And what about Jennifer Crumbley? What did you make of her after all of the evidence that was presented today, the conversations that she had, the reaction she had to the shooting?
Well, again, I think that in her reaching out to her boss and a coworker are kind of all in the same, it showed that she seemed to be surprised about it, but it also seemed where she's asking for a lawyer that she could have felt like she had done something wrong. Unclear whether she thought she needed that lawyer for herself or for her son. What I did notice is in watching her in court, and all eyes have been on the Crumbleys, largely because of their own communication, their glances, but I noticed that she was very tearful, especially during the 911 call, listening to her husband speaking to the 911 operator. She seemed to be very tearful during that time. So those are the little things that might be looked at by the court. Now, I don't think that there's going to be enough evidence in favor of the defense for the charges not to go forward, but we do see genuinely what seems like a show of emotion here. These are complicated issues, and to try to get at the question of what they knew and when they knew and whether they should have done something more is going to be a tough thing for the prosecutors to show, especially with the variation of emotional reaction after the fact.
And another interesting point, the relationship of James and Jennifer coming into play into this, possibly an extramarital affair was going on as well. What role and what kind of importance does that play into the case?
One of the things that I think is going to be important in evaluating what they knew and when they knew it was what the parents were actually doing during the time that Ethan was getting ready to do the damage that he did and commit the terrible crime that he committed as it appears on paper that he did. We know the gun was in his hand. We know he's the one who pulled the trigger. There are questions about whether he was insane at the time, and that's a different case, and that's something that's still being investigated. I don't want to indicate that he's guilty of something before his trial, but what the parents were going through, whether perhaps they were distracted by other things going on in their own lives and failing to take note of what their son was going through, could be an important factor here in determining how negligent they were in taking care of their son, albeit a teenager at the time.
Right, exactly. You know, Jennifer even speaking to a friend and saying that Ethan was, quote, weird, and that he only had one friend. These are the types of statements that we are hearing about Jennifer prior to the shooting itself. Anything else, any other big takeaways that maybe you heard from inside of the courtroom, from the proceedings, that were surprising to you that we didn't know?
I think one of the things that we fail to do oftentimes in how we report on these cases initially is that it's just kind of what's brought forward initially. What we are finding out is these are people with full lives, with a lot of complicated things going on both before the shooting and after the shooting. And when the trial really happens, and this is just a preliminary stage, I think we're going to see so much more of that, where to some degree they're going to be humanized, but also vilified by the prosecution. We're going to see a much broader picture of what's going on in the days and weeks beforehand and in the minutes and hours afterwards, to show just how much they knew, when they knew it, and what else was going on in their lives that could have distracted from it, or that they were distracted by when they should have been paying attention to what their son was doing.
Right. Well, we should be learning a lot more on February 24th at 8:30 a.m. Andrew Cherkasky, thank you so much for joining us here on the show to break it all down for us while it all was happening live.